Hey, Wondering Jews listeners, it's Jonathan Schwab, host of Jewish History Nerds with my friend and colleague Yael Steiner.
We are so excited to announce that we're back for our 4th season. Every week, we nerd out on a fascinating topic from Jewish history.
We're not historians, but we are fired up about learning. In Jewish History Nerds, we share our passion for Jewish history with each other and with you.
This season, we're focusing on symbols and objects, all with amazing stories and meaning. So join us for new episodes every Thursday. I promise you will learn something new.
Whoever said history was boring clearly never heard these stories. Subscribe to Jewish History Nerds wherever you get your podcasts and check out unpacked.media.
Hey everyone, welcome to Wondering Jews with Michal and Noam. I'm Michal. That was great. Hey everyone, welcome to Wondering Jews with Michal and Noam. I'm Noam, and this podcast is our way of trying to unpack those big questions being asked by Jewish people and about the Jewish people. We absolutely do not have it all figured out, but we're going to try and figure out some big things together, whether we make it there or not. For us, it's about the process of thinking, of wondering, of being curious, and leaving every episode feeling like we've all just gained something really meaningful. And we say this every week, and I mean it. It is our absolute favorite part of the show to hear from you, to hear from our listeners. So please continue to share your questions, your suggestions, your feedback, whatever is on your mind by emailing us at our new and improved email address, wonderingjews@unpacked.media. Again, that's wonderingjews@unpacked.media. Also, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Wondering Jews. It's all there. Instagram, Wondering Jews, Wondering Jews, Wondering Jews. Okay, I want to explore, wonder out loud about a topic of conversation today of something that I don't really know so much about. It's about the World Zionist Congress elections. Okay, so listen, I do not have Michal Biton here with me today, but I do have someone else with me today, the incomparable Tova Dorfman. And Tova Dorfman, I'll introduce in just a second. The World Zionist Congress elections, maybe you've seen a tweet, maybe you've seen an Instagram story, maybe you've gotten an email. Like I've gotten 732,000 emails to cast my vote in the upcoming World Zionist Congress elections. Someone recently told me this is not good. That they're like, Noam, did you vote yet? And I said, not yet. And they're like, okay, I'll vote for you. I'm like, what? That's not a thing. You cannot vote for me. Anyway, so I am here today with the incomparable, like I said, Tova Dorfman. And Tova serves as the president of the World Zionist Organization. She's been a board member of the Yesh Atid Party since its foundation. Tova, welcome to Wondering Jews.
Glad to be here. It's first of all, it's Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's Independence Day here in Israel, and just finished our traditional barbecue. We had a very unusual Yom Ha'atzmaut Independence Day because it started last night after Memorial Day, which is a very difficult day, especially this year. We're still in the middle of a war. And we had all these crazy fires with a huge 70-mile-per-hour winds and these crazy fires all over the Jerusalem forest area and people abandoning their cars. There's like 300 cars on the main highway between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv that are just stuck. It looks crazy. And this morning we wake up and the weather is back to normal. It started raining a little bit and barbecue out again, and that's it.
I like that you said the thing about the barbecue. It's really important before we get into the topic of World Zionist Congress elections. It's important because I like to remind my American, Australian, British, South African friends that if you're celebrating Israel Independence Day by eating falafel, then what you're doing is you're not celebrating Israel's Independence Day the way Israelis celebrate it, which is with a barbecue. Right. So let's remember
kebab and lamb chops.
Yeah.
And
whoa.
Right.
Okay, maybe that's yours. I don't get lamb chops very often. Okay, but anyway, Tova, I want to speak to you about the World Zionist Congress. Like, what is this? There's been a lot of conversation about it. I'm pretty well versed in Zionism and Israeli history, and I just want to know if you could give us a little bit about the history of the World Zionist Congress and the World Zionist Organization. What are these things?
So Herzl founded the World Zionist Congress in 1897, right? In 1897, he convened the first World Zionist Congress made up of all sorts of Jews, primarily in Europe at the time, because that was the majority of Jews were in Europe, and from all different ideological movements, so you had the revisionists and you had people who followed Ahad Ha'am and everybody else, around the table, basically to determine whether we are going to go out and create a Jewish state. That was where the Jewish state, the call for the Jewish state was announced at the, and that was in Basel. We celebrated a few years back, the same place where they had the first Zionist Congress. And since then, every 5 years or so, depending obviously on historical events, but every 5 years it convenes. There's an election process that happens differently all over the world. The United States has the broadest and sort of the most open, democratically elected election process out of any of the other countries,
right.
Partially because it's the largest Jewish community in the world.
Right. So there are 500 seats in the Congress. Is that right? Something like
There's
that?
532 seats in the Congress that are elected delegates. There's a few hundred that aren't elected that are grandfathered in of the traditional Zionist organizations like WZC, which is a women's, Zionist organization, and Hadassah, and, and Na'amat, and all these other and Zionist organizations that were sort of grandfathered in as traditional Zionist organizations. So it's a body that most people don't understand and most people aren't connected to.
Yeah.
I think in the United States, the most, it probably because I feel that for a long time, we didn't really talk about Zionist education in America because Zionism and, Jewish identity, and there was a lot of conflict. Not that there isn't today, but in a way that even institutions like for a long time, some of the reform movement, didn't embrace Zionism.
Okay, so we'll get to that in a bit because, spoiler alert, I think the reform movement won the 2020 WZC election in the United States, right? So,
well, they have the majority, absolutely. I'm talking about traditional reform,
I know.
We're talking about the old days, right? But they changed over the years because, they realized that Israel is central to their identity and, we have to be strong for each other. So I think that was sort of a change.
So the history is in 1897, Theodor Herzl launches the first Zionist Congress. And then this year is the 39th World Zionist Congress, I believe.
Correct.
And the Jewish state exists, and it's existed for 77 years. So now what is the World Zionist Congress doing? Why does this matter?
You're absolutely right, Noam. Like everybody says, well, wait a second. Now that we have a state, why do I need a Jewish agency for Israel, right? I mean, we have a absorption department or ministry of absorption and ministry of this. And why do we? So the Jewish agency, served a lot for Aliyah, for bringing people. They could function in countries that the state of Israel couldn't function. And so the Jewish Agency for Israel is still one of these national institutions that was created to help build the state and maintain certain things in the state. And the fundraising arm of that is obviously you have JFNA, which is
Jewish. JFNA means Jewish
Federations of North America.
Yeah.
And then you have Keren HaYesod, which is every place else raising money except for North America. So it's Europe, South America, Australia, South Africa, wherever there's a Jewish community. So they raise money to Keren HaYesod, which goes through the Jewish Agency. That's one piece. The second piece, which is the most important piece, is called Keren Kayemet LiYisrael, also known in the old days as the Jewish National Fund. Okay. Remember the tzedakah boxes? This is going really way back.
Yeah. The blue ones, the blue boxes.
Okay, so now they're busy because the forests that were burnt down yesterday, it's under their jurisdiction because they're the largest landowner in Israel, and they own they're responsible for forestry.
KKL is the largest landowner in Israel.
So their assets of sales for whatever goes into a budget. That budget is the budget for the Jewish people, and that's about $1 billion a year.
Holy Lord. Okay, so wait. So now we're getting into this. So the World Zionist Congress, which still exists, even though the state of Israel has existed since 1948, is the election that takes place every 5 years under the auspices of the World Zionist Organization, correct?
Yeah, each country it's run a little differently, but yes.
Okay, and what's up for grabs for the Jewish people is the allocation of $1 billion. Is that what it is, essentially?
It's not only the allocation, it's the governance of a big body that deals with all different aspects of the Jewish people. So why did it continue to exist after the creation of the state? Because it was one of the only bodies that represented diaspora Jewry as well. In other words, otherwise we'd just be the Parliament of Israel, which doesn't represent, diaspora Jewry. And if we are really the Jewish state, that we believe in, we really believe in Jewish peoplehood, or we are responsible for one another. There are other organizations, but this is the one that actually is the governance body. These funds go to creating policy and programs both in Israel and around the world.
Okay. So you think it's important to vote in the World Zionist Congress?
Not only is it important because the board of directors of Kakao are like, there's
that's KKL. That's KKL.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry that there's not a good translation because JNF was part of that. And then they split, and that's a whole other story, which I'm not going to get into.
Yeah, everyone listening, all the acronyms, we got WZC, World Zionist Congress, WZO, World Zionist Organization, KKL,
Right.
Karen Kayemet La Yisrael, JNF, Jewish National Fund, JFNA, Jewish Federation of North America. We love acronyms. We love them.
We love it. It's what is it? The alphabet soup of the Jewish world.
Oh, my
is what
Lord.
It is.
Okay. And if you're not part of this world, you're like, what in the holy F is going on?
It's like speaking Martian. It really is with people who don't know what we're talking about.
But we're trying to explain it. This is important. If it represents the Jewish people, 15.7 million Jews around the world, okay, and the
Correct.
World Zionist Congress is the election that takes place every 5 years that's there to represent this. Okay, so now keep going.
And there's different ideological parties that run in these elections, and they're called slates. It's like political parties in Israel, but they're slates that represent a certain value system, a certain belief, a certain ideology. So you have the reform movement that runs a slate because they want to have their institutions not only supported, but also their institutions in Israel. And it's very important because they are a big chunk of the Jewish people in North America, is Reform Judaism.
Tova, before we get into the specifics, I want to talk to me like I'm a third grader. What is this money going to? So $1 billion. Now what? Like, I should vote because this money is going to...
There's certain things that are fixed, like the forestry I mentioned, okay?
Right.
But there's a lot of money that's not fixed, and that it goes to supporting Zionist and Jewish activities throughout the world. So there's education. There's in Israel, there's, we call the pre-military academy, the academies that get supported.
Okay.
There's building in the Negev and the Galil. They allocated a big chunk of money now after October 7th to do a lot of capital projects in the Galil and in the northern part of Israel and in the south in the Gaza envelope. If in the last election, the new player in all of this was the ultra-Orthodox.
Wow. Rookie of the year 2020 went to the ultra-Orthodox. Did they go by ultra-Orthodox?
No. The party that, or I should say the slate that was created primarily by somebody named Pesach Lerner in Brooklyn was called Eretz HaKodesh. Right?
Okay, that's a good name.
Holy Land.
Holy Land, yeah.
And they're definitely a Haredi, ultra-Orthodox Haredi. We call it Haredi ultra-Orthodox.
I just looked it up. They won 25 seats last year.
Exactly.
And they got 20,023 votes.
Right.
Pretty good.
Right. For the first time around. So the big question is I don't know if you follow Israeli politics at all.
Decently,
but Israeli, okay. But you know that the ultra-Orthodox parties in the Israeli political system are non-Zionist, right? Ultra-Orthodox do not adhere to Zionist ideology, right?
This is wild, actually. It's wild. A Zionist is a lot of different things, and we have multiple podcasts about this. Check out Unpacking Israeli History for all things history of Zionism. Okay, but Zionism is the belief that the Jewish people have a right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland, the land of Israel. When you say Eretz HaKodesh is non-Zionist, is that what you mean?
No, I didn't say that Eretz HaKodesh was non-Zionist. I said that political parties in Israel that consider themselves ultra-Orthodox do not adhere, and I'm talking about Yahadut Torah, which is, I think they in English it's called United Torah Judaism whatever they are, and Shas, which is the Sephardic Torah party, does somehow is sort of like blurred on that. But most of them are the ultra-Orthodox, and their rabbis believe that Israel should only be established once the Messiah comes. They're against the whole notion of that we are bringing about the sovereign state of Israel. So this party that was created in the U.S. called Eretz HaKodesh, even though they say they're ultra-Orthodox, they say we're not aligned with the political parties in Israel. We are own homegrown. We can sign on and say we are Zionist, okay? It's a huge, I would say almost revolution in the world of the ultra-Orthodox and how they view the state of Israel. So you have one party that's already sort of like jumped over and said, we're willing to sign on the Zionist, dotted line to run in these elections. And we did amazingly well. Now that is very interesting because if you look at what's the percentage according to Pew a couple of years ago of what's the percentage of Jews in America that are Orthodox? 9%, I think.
Wow. Okay.
9 or 10% altogether.
Yeah.
And they in the Congress, in the last Congress in the 2020, they represent close to 33% of the Congress.
Woof.
So there's sort of an imbalance about who's represented here. It's not totally, because of the voting patterns, it's not totally representative of mainstream Jews, however you want to define Jews. So it's sort of like this time around, what's happening now fast forward, is there's a real push to get a lot of people who, want to have their views
represented.
Yeah.
Here's what I got. I went into the 2020 WZC election, and I see that Arza, the Reform, won 39 seats. I see that the Orthodox Israel Coalition, Mizrahi, won 27 seats. I see, and they're religious Zionist Mizrahi. Then you have Eretz HaKodesh, whose affiliation and ideology is Haredi ultra-Orthodox. They won 25 seats. And those are the top 3 seats, and then Merkaz USA, Conservative Masorti Judaism, won 18, 14,666. And then ZOA Coalition, ooh, wow. They won 13 seats, 10,313. Now, I want to get clarity just in a second on who's allowed to actually vote in these elections. And I think you have to be, tell me if I'm wrong, it's certainly in the United States, you have to be over 18, you have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident, and you have to be Jewish. You can be atheist, believe whatever in the world that you want to believe.
Right, you're self-defined Jewish.
Self-defined as Jewish, okay. Okay. And then you have to also accept the Zionist movement platform, the Jerusalem program, right, which views a Jewish, Zionist, democratic, and secure state of Israel to be the expression of the common responsibility of the Jewish people for its continuity and future. So that is, if you're in the United States of America, that is who is allowed to vote. Now, when is this taking place?
So it's now. It's a 6-week voting process. It was launched on March 10th. Okay. And it's over on May 4th. So if you did, for all of your listeners, it's soon. You got 3 days today. But anyway, Sunday night is the deadline. Sunday night, midnight, May 4th.
May 4th,
between May 4th and May 5th. That, it'll really determine what the composition of the Congress will look like, because the United States has 152 delegates. So it's like a third. Sorry to be like an annoying American right now. My apologies in advance. If the United States of America represents almost 50% of world Jewry, why does it only have a third of the slates? Well, there's a third. A third is the remainder of Jewry all around the world. And then the other third is made up of Israeli political parties that are basically represented by the Knesset, that are a part of Zionist parties, because some of them are Arab parties and they're not Zionist parties, et cetera. Ultra-Orthodox I talked about. They each get 2 delegates automatically. Okay. So their election process happens de facto when they get elected to the Knesset. Okay, this is very interesting. I really don't think a lot of people know about this. I'm so happy we're talking about this. Okay, so, and then in the United States, elections are organized every 5 years by the AZM, American Zionist Movement. Herbert Bloch is the head of that. Is that correct? Right? Correct. Okay. So shout out to the AZM and Herbert Bloch. But so the idea is, if you're Jewish and you want to have skin in the game, and that's why I view this, when someone asks me the definition of a Zionist, I actually don't talk about the ancestral homeland. I think what I view as a Zionist is someone who actually says, I have skin in the game and I am actively forging my future. That is what I have self-determination. I have agency. I am a subject. I am not an object. And this is one of the ways that you can actually forge and cultivate your Jewish identity, which is to be part of this, to say, here's how the funds of the Jewish world should be spent as it relates to the broader Jewish story. I want to ask you a few questions based on what I'm now, I've done a little research into understanding who are the players. And let me just, in the U.S., I want to just name a few of them. I'm going to name all of them to behave well. Okay? I'm going to start from A to Z. We got Achdut Yisrael. We have America, Israel Democracy. We have Eish Ha'am. We have Am Yisrael Chai. I see what you did there. It's a good slogan, a very famous slogan. Okay. American Forum for Israel, ANU, and we're still at A. Okay. Then we have Biyachad, Dorshe Torah Vitzion, Eretz HaKodesh, Hatikva,
Cherut North America, Israel 365 Action, Israeli American Council, Kol Israel, Americas USA, Orthodox Israeli Coalition, Mizrahi, Shas Olami, the Jewish Future, Vision, Vote Reform, ZOA Coalition. Okay, so those are the different slates. So I want to ask you, if you could predict who's going to win, what's your prediction?
Wow.
Give me your top three.
Well, I think the reform movement will do. I think they'll do well because they've worked really hard, and they deserve to do well because they do have a big constituency, and their constituency should be represented. You know, I mean, they have a million.
So you think because Vote Reform, you think, and they changed the name from ARSA to Vote Reform?
I think that's what they're called now. Yeah.
Okay. Sweet. Keep going. Okay. Who else we got?
Wow. I do think by virtue of the numbers, I think you are going to see a strong Orthodox presence. There are a few of them out there.
There's Shas Olami, there's Orthodox Israel Coalition Mizrahi, there's Eretz HaKodesh.
Which is more national, which is the national religious. It's not ultra Orthodox.
There's Dorshay.
You have Eish Ha'am. Is Eish Torah considered?
Yeah, I mean Eish Ha'am, that's Orthodox, and then you have
exactly.
What about Am Yisrael Chai? That sounds Orthodox-ish, is it not?
That is Orthodox. You know what? That is part of the Olami movement.
Okay, Dorshay Torah V'Tzion, also Orthodox.
Yeah, it's Orthodox. You got it.
I'll tell you who is not Orthodox, Hatikva.
If I had to, draw where they are in the political spectrum, they're much more to the left of center.
Okay.
They represent several organizations like the former Labor Party, or we used to be called World Zionist Coalition, and they represent Meretz Olami.
Labor barely exists at this point, so who do they represent that exists?
Meretz Olami, for example. The people who were, Americans for Peace Now.
Okay, what about J Street? Is J Street part of this?
J Street is also part of them now,
okay,
part of that coalition.
So this is really cool. So the World Zionist Congress is from J Street to the ultra-Orthodox. That's really cool.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
It's really what I said to you. It's really the only platform to democratically elect people who you feel are going to represent you.
That's really cool. Okay, so you have the Orthodox, but here's the thing. You said like 7 different slates. So aren't they just eating at each other?
Yeah, there is a lot of cannibalization that's going on here. Yeah. But you know what I think? I want to look at it positively. I think that after October 7th, everybody's been talking about the surge, right? I think that 22 slates running is amazing. I mean, more engagement than we've ever seen before. Certainly the bigger voter turnout. Last time there were 123,000 voters altogether. We already have, and we have a few days left, we already have close to 170 or something. Gotcha. We don't know what it's going to be like in the next 3 days. So we'll see.
Gotcha. I'm going to ask you some questions. You ready, Tova? You get this. I'm putting you on the spot here. Okay. I want you to answer this question. Who is the coach of the year? Meaning, which slate leader or strategist has run the smartest campaign? Coach of the year.
Wow. It's a tough one.
I'm only going to ask you tough questions.
I'll tell you some of the grassroots ones that I'm impressed with. So, for example, Jewish Future. Okay, so Jewish Future is one of these grassroots that tried to do a centrist slate that was not left, not right, centrist, trying to capture sort of like the mainstream Federation, JCC, like those kind of people who would connect to organizations like that. And they did a very professional campaign. Let's hope, they get in because they deserve it because of, I think, who they're representing in America that hasn't been represented before.
Let's just be straight about this. Your colleague, David Gedzelman is a leader on it, and his daughter Naomi wrote a phenomenal Times of Israel piece on it. To our listeners,
so I love them. I think
Tova's not fully impartial. Let's be clear about that. But that's okay.
That's really my opinion, not the opinion of the World Zionist Organization. Right. I take full full credit for my own opinions.
Okay. Who else?
Okay. Anyway, I think the reform movement took it really seriously. I think that 39 seats last time around was not a good showing for them, even though they feel like they increased. And if you look at all of the temples and synagogues around the United States, over 1 million constituents, they could really be a game changer if everybody I'll tell you one thing that happened in this election, which is super interesting, I think, is the use of social media influencers. I'm sure you are bombarded.
Yeah.
What slates did was try to get all the top social media influencers on their slate. So that was a way of being able to market because of this surge and this, big hasbara kind of thing that's happening in on the air.
Got it. Let me ask you this. I'm going to give you another one. I have a few categories. This is called the John Morant Award. I want you to tell us who the most provocative platform or candidate soundbite on the ballot is. Like, give me something provocative. What's a provocative platform?
I'll tell you what's the most provocative. I think that Aid Coalition, AID, they've been very,
America,
very...
Israel, Democracy. That stands for America, Israel, Democracy.
Exactly. And they're kind of a left of center group.
Right. They're the anti-judicial overhaul protest people, right?
Exactly. They're the unacceptable group of some of them are part of the unacceptable group, which they do the rallies for the hostages, Central Park and in other places around the country.
Okay.
They're a pro-democracy organization. Pro-Israel is a...
So they win your John Morant Award. Okay.
Well, they were very bold about going after the ultra-Orthodox because they feel like they're ruining Israel.
That's provocative.
Okay. That's very provocative.
Okay. Now I want you to give me the defensive player of the year. Who's the slate that's strongest on security, IDF support, or combating anti-Semitism? Who does this go to?
Those are three different issues.
I know. Okay.
Okay. So I think the people that are doing it, and I'm going to give a plug to ANU. Which is
ANU. Wow. Okay.
ANU. Have you seen them?
ANU.
So there are a lot of young people. Yes, a new union. A lot of young people under the age of in their 20s, 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
I would say politically they're loosely, and they're not aligned, but loosely adhere to some of the principles of the Israel Policy Forum.
Okay.
So they deal a lot more with geopolitical issues. Even though not exclusively, they definitely have a platform on what should be happening in the Jewish world. But they have dealt with the whole issue of a two-state solution,
Okay, so shout out to Michael Koplow. There you go. Okay, so
right,
Israel Policy Forum. Okay,
and to Roe Eisenberg.
Roe Eisenberg. There we go. Names. We're just saying names at this point. Okay.
Right.
All right. I like this one. I like this one a lot. But I think you kind of answered it, but maybe not. Who wins your most improved award, the most improved slate? That's the returning list with the biggest growth since the last Congress. Who's going to win the most improved slate? The biggest jump?
I think Merkaz. I think the conservative movement.
Really?
You know why?
So they're the conservative Masorti Judaism. That's the global voice of them, and they defend a pluralistic, democratic Israel that honors diversity, diverse Jewish traditions, and the like, and equal rights for all citizens. So you think Merkaz is going to have a big? That's your prediction.
No, I'm not sure about how big, but I think they're going to have the biggest improvement because the last time around, they did not have a good showing for what they stand for and for how many people they have in their world. Okay. There are a lot of conservative synagogues all over America, right? They have huge, huge congregations. And so to protect their ideology and what they stand for, both in Israel and then around the world, I think that they were not happy with the last results. And then they took it really, really, really seriously this time around and are going gangbusters.
Wow. So Tova, can I just tell you a clear through line from everything you're saying? Anyone that took this very seriously is someone that you think.
No, that's not true.
No. If you're saying if you took this seriously, then great.
Yeah.
And if you don't take this seriously, then you made your bed.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm saying. But I think, listen, I don't know how they're going to do. I really think it depends. I mean, if I was a congregant at some synagogues, Valley Beth Shalom, okay, which is a synagogue that I'm familiar with a little bit.
Just everyone that's in LA, in the Valley,
Los Angeles,
which is near the city. Oh, that was a really deep cut. Sorry, guys. Right. Valley's awesome also. Okay. All good. Yeah.
Right. And Nolan is the rabbi there. Anyway, but they are if I was a congregant, if I was a rabbi and a congregant, I'd say, everybody, okay, this is important for our movement. It's important for the existence of our movement, the continuity. It's important for Camp Ramah. It's important for all the things that we stand for. And so I would get every single congregant to try to vote. It's not easy, but they have the most access to people. They don't have to buy email lists, right? They have their constituency. So I think that it's really, really important. I think that they're going to definitely improve. I think they learned their lesson last time. I think they felt they should have done better.
Okay, well, let's see what happens to them. It'll be very, very interesting to see if they're able to grow their reach. Okay, so there you have it. We've gone through a lot of different categories of the slates, trying to understand what is happening. So by May 4th, all of these elections are going to take place. Which is going to be really, really interesting to see what ends up happening, how these how the $1 billion are going to be spent and who has a stake in the game. I have one last slate to ask one last award, I should say, to ask you about. You ready for this last award?
Sure.
Okay. There's the Showtime Award, by the way. I like this award, the Showtime Award, which slate has the biggest Jewish celeb Instagram influencer household name attached. Do you have a show? I have one more award after this, but like, do you have anyone that's a specific name that you're like, boom, here's the Showtime Award?
I think they just actually Kol Yisrael just came out. I think Elon Gold came out with a
Elon Gold.
There.
He's a member of I love that you said it. He's a member of the Unpacked family. Shout out to our podcast, Stars of David, with Elon Gold. By the way, we did not do that on purpose. But if they're giving out $1 billion of education, I think that, and I'm not asking for a lot, I think that Open Door Media Unpacked should get 1%. That's not a lot.
I'm with you.
It's just 1%. I can ask for 1%. 1% of
I am
$1 billion.
totally with you. How about next time you create a slate, Noam?
Oh, no. I'm so apolitical. You know that. I'm an educator. Okay.
I know.
Okay, so let's build out your last one. Build out your big three. Big three. Build your dream coalition. The big three, like this is going back like early aughts, like Boston Celtics, Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett. Like, give me your big three. Build your dream coalition. Pick three slates to build around that you think like this will represent the Jewish world. If you pick top three.
Wow. Top three only. It's very difficult.
I'm only asking you difficult questions.
I think that, by the way, the good thing about the World Zionist Congress, unlike the Israeli Knesset, there's no opposition. Once you have the results, you work very hard to create what they call a coalition agreement, where everybody kind of divvies up certain areas that are the most important to them. But it really does work as somebody who sits on the executive board of the World Zionist Organization.
Gotcha. So three slates.
Okay, so if I can put the Reform and Conservative together, I'd love to do that.
I don't think they appreciate that, but noted. Okay, so and then who else?
No, but seriously, it's very difficult.
Yeah.
I would say one, and I can't determine which party, but I would say one party of the Orthodox, another Mizrahi, which represents.
I just have to make a note.
It's very hard.
But of course, it's hard. But you just said Reform. They have their one crew. Then you have Conservative, they're one crew, then Orthodox is like split up into.
But I'll tell you why, because I want more than anything. More than anything else. You're right. More than anything else, I really think that this needs to be seriously represented, a representative body of what we're seeing in America today.
Vision? So what about Vision? They're pretty funky. Vision's funky.
I don't even know.
Okay, I'm just saying they're funky. They're really interesting. They're really interesting.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
There are a lot of ones that are like. There are a lot of ones that are just that are created a certain slate. When I said to you, why doesn't Unpacked have a slate? That's kind of what they did. They go, we got a program, we got an idea, we want to have a slate.
All right, so you know what? They have skin in the game. So I'm going to ask you this final question. So new, what now? Like what do you want all of us to be thinking about? Like it's May 1st when we're recording. May 4th, by Sunday night, May 4th, we are going to know where the World Zionist. We're not going to know. I made that up. We're going to know. We're going to know probably. It's going to take a while. It takes a little while to get. How long does it take? All the tallies. Listen, last time, which I was not part of the process, they said it took 10 days to get the final results because they have to go through, you have different pockets of people. The ultra-Orthodox send in, instead of doing everything online, they do a lot of sending in, mail-in envelopes and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways to vote. And so they want to make sure that everybody's included and that they don't miss anybody and so on and so forth. So it's a process. So Noam, can I just say something about I just had a great conversation with Yonit Levy yesterday, who does the Unholy podcast with Jonathan Friedland. Yeah. For the first time, Israelis are paying attention to what's going on here as well, where they weren't really participatory. So she did a little bit of a segment on it on her podcast because she was so intrigued with this whole platform that's going on that most people don't know that it's the place where Israel and diaspora come together for decision making. Wow. So there you have it. It's really, really cool to have diaspora and Israel come together representing the broad Jewish world from J Street to the Haredim coming together in the World Zionist Congress elections, which are taking place right now. And I will say the reason I really like this, and I want to encourage everyone to be part of it to some degree, or another. First of all, you now learned a lot about it. Like, I just learned a lot about it. We got the John Morant Award. We got the Most Improved Slate. We got the Big Three. I learned a lot about the World Zionist Congress. And to me, the most important thing for Jewish people is to not be passive, to not sit idly by, to not complain, to not say, woe is me, woe is us, but to get your fingernails dirty, be part of the Jewish story. And that takes place in lots of different ways, lots of different places. Don't be lazy with your Judaism. Don't be lazy with your Zionism. Be part of the Jewish story. Don't just say, hey, this is what's happening in Israel, and then like be in the stands and do that. Come on, let's be part of this whole thing. So that's why I really love this. Stop fetching, go out and vote. We'll put it in the show notes. Absolutely. Everyone should check it out. And again, Tova, thank you so much for recording with us.
Thanks for having me, and Yom Ha'atzmaut Sameach.
Let me just say, Tova, we missed Michal a lot, but it was so much fun to have you on the podcast. And thanks for joining us. Wandering Jews with Michal and Noam is a production of Unpacked, an Open Door Media brand. Subscribe wherever you listen to this pod and follow Unpacked on all the regular social media channels. Just search for @Unpacked Media. And if you enjoy Wondering with us, please share this and other episodes with your friends, family, whomever. Just get it out there. Be part of this community. Most of all, be in touch with us by writing to us at wonderingjews@unpacked.media. Again, it's not Wandering Jews, it's Wondering Jews, WONDERING Jews @unpacked.media. And follow us on Instagram at Wondering Jews. So check it out on Instagram at Wondering Jews. This episode was hosted by me, Noam Weissman, with Tova Dorfman. Rob Pera is our audio editor, and we are produced by the great Michael Weber and Rifki Stern. Research by Ariella Bernstein. Thank you so much.
Thank you.